Are you currently living in the Bay Area thinking about, where you'll live when you retire? With house prices in Healdsburg averaging $1.9 million over the past 3 months, is it now only the super rich who can afford to move here in retirement? I've got good news for you. If you know where to look, it's possible to buy a nice place, just a 30-minute walk to the plaza, for only $700,000. The secret is to consider the 55 plus community, because it's still some of the best value real estate in Healdsburg. And by the end of this video, I'll tell you everything you need to know about the 55 plus community so you can find the best value in this community. So let's talk about the 55 plus community and how you can find a great place for less than you think. The 55 plus community in Healdsburg is just a mile away from Healdsburg Plaza. If you leave the plaza down Matheson Street, you'll walk straight down for a mile or so and you come to Orchard Street on the right hand side. And that's the start of the 55 plus community. As well as being really close to downtown, it's also right by the Russian River and Georgie Park, which are both easily accessible to everyone who lives there. And there's 3 distinct areas to the community, each with their own HOA. They've each got their own clubhouse and pool, as well as really nice open spaces that are managed by the Homeowners Association. And one of the great things about this area is that homeowners all have access to the common space through a gate that then also connects down to the river. So Riverview is the community that's furthest away from Healdsburg Plaza, starting at Orangewood Drive. There are 101 single-storey homes. A quarter of these homes actually back up to common areas, which is great. And the homes in this area tend to be, on slightly smaller lots, and a higher proportion of the homes are the smaller 2-bed configurations rather than the 3-bed configurations in some of the other areas. And because of the location of these homes, a lot of them also have a view of Fitch Mountain, which is definitely a real bonus. So then there's Rivers Bend, which is the newest of the 3 developments, and that's the one that's nearest to the Healdsburg Plaza, and that starts on Orchard Street and extends over to Prune Tree Drive. This has 118 homes, which range in size from I think just over 1,000 square feet up to just under 1,300 square feet, and definitely tends to have the more updated homes than some of the other areas, and also some of the larger homes as well, with the larger backyards. And there's definitely a good mixture of 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom homes in Rivers Bend. Riverside is the community that's sandwiched in between Rivers Bend and Riverview, and takes in Mountain View Drive and Vineyard Drive. As with the other communities, it also has got its own green space, as well as having access to to a clubhouse and also to the river. The downside of any HOA is that there are monthly costs. However, the Rivers Bend HOA fees, they're the most expensive, and they're about $450 per quarter, while Riverside fees are, I think it's $350, and Riverview are $360 per quarter. So, as HOA fees go, at about, or certainly not more than $150 per month, they really are quite reasonable. As with any HOA, there are rules and regulations that you need to follow as a homeowner. And to be honest, many of these are common sense and require homeowners to just act with consideration to their neighbours and keep their properties looking presentable. For example, you aren't allowed to keep RVs or boats on the property, and for what it's worth, you can only have 2 garage sales per year. Although, to be honest, I'm not sure who needs more than that. But that's another question. And a lot of the rules are around, how the property can only be used for residential purposes, that you need to keep the landscape trimmed, adhere to speed limits of, 25 miles an hour around the community, all fairly basic stuff. While it is possible to rent out the homes, and you can obviously only do so to somebody 55 or older, a homeowner can't rent the home out within the first 3 years of occupancy. So even after 3 years, an owner can only rent the home for 60 days or more, and they can only rent the whole property. You can't just rent a room. So they're not really an option for most investors. So let's talk about the houses and the different floor plans. The first is what I call, the galley kitchen model. The smaller units, which are just over 1,000 square feet, will often have, a galley kitchen at the front of the house that's on the right hand side as you go in, that's divided from the living room. For many people, the galley kitchen doesn't work, but for the units that have been remodeled, these make very good use of, of what is a relatively small footprint. So an example of one of those is 224 Mountain View Drive, which sold earlier this year. And that's, definitely one of these floor plans that's been nicely remodeled. And this is one of a number of properties that were actually all owned by the same person that systematically sold over the last 12 months. The next model is what I call the front kitchen. A number of the homes have a kitchen on the left-hand side as you go through the front door that's definitely very much divided from the living space and divided from the sort of dining space. So if you are looking for something with, a distinct kitchen, dining and lounge, one of these options could be good for you. And the next model is what I call the Jack and Jill bathroom model. There's a number of homes, I think it's probably more in the Riverview community than anywhere else that have, Jack and Jill bathrooms that are designed to provide an ensuite bathroom to the second bedroom, but which is also accessible from the living space as the bathroom for visitors. 308 Olive Circle is an example of one of these. It's it's a 2-bed, 2-bath home that's 1,200 square feet and has the kitchen, at the rear of the house with a well laid out living area, but it's definitely on a relatively small lot at just over 3,200 square feet. And the one thing you notice with these sorts of homes, that the rear fence is fairly close to the back of the house, but it does open up at the side to a sort of larger side yard. But then that also leads out to the open space via a gate, which is obviously really nice. And then the final floor plan I talk about is what I'd call the open L shape. The open L shape is definitely my favourite floor plan. There was one on Prune Tree Drive that sold last year, and that's a good example of this. In fact, a client of mine purchased this, and it's probably my favourite home that sold in Rivers Bend, certainly in the recent past. It had a really nice open floor plan with the living area at the front of the house, which leads into the dining area, and then with the kitchen off to the right hand side. It also had the added advantage that it opened up to the open space behind. And this combined with the fact it was on a good sized lot that was over 4,000 square feet made the yard feel really nice and spacious. So the last model I want to talk about is the vaulted ceiling model. As you drive down Orchard Road, you will see some mid-century modern homes on the right hand side with high vaulted ceilings. However, I'm afraid don't get too excited, as these just really don't come on the market very often. The last example of one of these was I think it was 371 Orchard Lane, which was only just over 1,000 square feet, so pretty small, and it sold for $697,000 back in 2019. So that was 3 years ago now. It had been totally remodeled with a contemporary feel. Then even 3 years ago, it sold at $650 per square foot, which is the highest price per square foot of anything that sold in Rivers Bend in 2022, 3 years later. So that just tells you how much those ones are in demand. So what are the 4 different things that make a real difference to the price of homes in this 55 plus community? So the first thing is open space. The most sought after properties are the ones that back onto the open space along Orchard Street and Pinon Drive, which borders the river path and leads all the way to the park. The homes that back onto the larger internal space along, Prune Tree Drive, for example, those are also, definitely sought after. There are definitely other homes, for example, along Mountain View Road, and a lot of the homes in the Riverview community that are in the cul-de-sacs, and these all back onto sort of smaller open spaces, but they tend to be quite long and narrow, so they just don't have the same, overall feel. The second thing that impacts the price is the size of the yard. The larger lots they're over 4,000 square feet, but none of the lots are more than 5,000 square feet. So they're definitely not large lots, but there's a big difference in how a yard feels based on whether or not it backs up to open space or it's right up against a neighbouring property. Some of the smaller lots, literally just over 2,000 square feet, such as there's one on Ash Circle that sold this year. They really are teeny tiny lots. The third thing which impacts price is the openness of the floor plan. There are only really 3 or 4 different floor plans, and then everything else is a variation on the theme with various walls having been removed. The most sought after units, and so obviously the most expensive, are probably the ones that have an L-shaped living, dining, kitchen area and are open plan. This is the layout of 2015 Prune Tree Drive that I mentioned earlier. The fourth factor which impacts price is the overall condition of the property and the extent to which it's been remodeled. Given these homes were built in the 1970s, many of them are on their the second roofs, which, some of which are, even of those are coming to the end of life, and many have the old aluminum window frames. So, the remodeled ones are definitely sought after. Many of the homes also have original kitchens and bathrooms, which, definitely look pretty dated now. So there's definitely a good number of homes that have been remodeled by their owners, but finding one that's been remodeled within the last 5 years that's for sale, it'll definitely take some patience. If you are open to doing a remodel, then finding one with, everything original, backing onto the open space on a lot that's, near 5,000 square feet, those are definitely the ones to look for. You could really make one of those pretty special if you were prepared to put in the work to do the remodel. If you want to know more about living in Healdsburg or read articles about remodeling and improving your home, then please subscribe to my monthly newsletter, and I'll put a link down below. So the big question is, how much can you expect to pay for one of these homes in the 55 plus community? For the smallest homes that are less than 1,100 square feet, you can expect to pay around $600,000, if they've had some updates done. If it's a true fixer in all original condition, then these smaller units can sell. They can sell for as little as $500,000, although these are definitely getting a little harder to find. For the larger units, which are 1,200 to 1,400 square feet, if it's been totally remodeled and it backs onto the open space, you can definitely expect to pay $800, $850, or certainly in the region of $650 per square foot. For similar homes that have had minimal updates, you can expect to pay sort of nearer the $700,000 mark, or nearer to, $530 a square foot. So the big question is the 55 plus community right for you to enable you to retire in Healdsburg in a way which is just that much more affordable? Some people struggle with accepting the fact the 55 plus community is almost certainly the best option for them. Once you get away from any preconceptions and look at the facts, it really is the great option for a lot of people. How else can you buy a home here for less than $900,000? Have access to a pool, have access to green spaces, right by your home, in a neighborhood with wide streets that's walking distance to, trails along the river. If all that isn't enough, you can walk to town for your morning coffee in, just 30 minutes. So if you are on a budget and are looking for help in how to find somewhere for your retirement in Healdsburg, please do get in touch at david@brewingtonhargreaves.com. If you enjoyed this video, you might like another video I did, which is a guide to downtown Healdsburg and how you can find a home in downtown Healdsburg for less than $1 million. Until the next video, go well.